Hey guys, King of Charmander here. For today, I bring to you the top 8 Pokemon, or the top Pokemon used in the half switch timer meta. This was presented by PvPoke.com. As you see here, it's in his Patreon, so that's why it's blurred out. However, if you would like to, please consider donating to PvPoke.com. He does have a Patreon, and if you donate, he gives you early access to information, and it really helps out for my content. But I'm going to present to you over here from my point of view, but it's generally the same thing. PvPoke.com, again, like, he does amazing things, so please consider donating to this wonderful website. Anyways, let's get started. Alright, first up we got Umbreon. Now, there's not really, I don't really need to give Umbreon an introduction. It's been out for a long time since the preseason. It's been insanely powerful, and in this Switch Clock meta, I can agree it's very strong. And I've seen it a lot, and the reason is because it's tanky, it's bulky. Fun fact, the only thing that can run through Umbreon within the 30-second timer is a Shadow Gardevoir. So it takes an entire Shadow Charm user, or actually probably the most oppressive Charm user in the entire universe, to take out Umbreon within this new Switch Clock meta. You're able to run the Switch Clock pretty quickly with Snarl and Foul Play, as Snarl's a 3-turn move, Foul Play only takes 4 turns, like, it only takes 4 Snarls to get the Foul Play. So because of that, you can pivot out really quickly if you end up in a bad matchup. It's highly maneuverable, meaning that because it can get to Foul Play so quickly and it's so bulky, you can use it a lot to, like, decide what you want to do. Do you want to realign it? Do you want to keep it in? Do you want to sack it? It's really up to you. And it also creates a lot of catch and sack opportunities like I put here, because of that maneuverability and the bulkiness. Because it's able to keep you really safe, and you can queue up a Foul Play or Last Resort to possibly end the match. That's just how bulky Umbreon is. It can give your opponent a lot of problems, and it can do you really well if you really like that safe and bulky, like, that combination. Umbreon is for you. The only issue with Umbreon, I would say, is probably just fighters. You don't see them a lot, but fighters can give you an issue. Also, another thing other than fighters is charmers. A lot of people are using that charm combination where you'll put a charmer in the back or in the lead and you'll pivot out of it, and then once the switch timer is up, they'll switch their charmer in, and even one charm, even though Umbreon's bulky, you don't want charm chip damage on Umbreon. 1 or 2 charms can still do a little bit of damage, so it can chunk away at Umbreon, so just be careful with that. You get Umbreon locked into a charmer, unless you can Last Resort it down, that's pretty much GG's, so make sure you're aware of that. But Umbreon is the tankiest mon in this meta, and it's very, very powerful. Alright, next up we have Purified Sableye. So Sableye is super powerful in Open Great League. Even without the switch timer being 30 seconds, Sableye is a beast, and for good reason. In this Weather Ball meta, Purified Sableye actually has a lot of safe matchups. It's very strong, and it can, like, Ghost and Dark typing is very, very, it's just so, it has plenty of coverage. You do well against all the Psychic types, Return does big damage, and it's just, it gets to its moves so quickly because of Shadow Claw. And that's the reason why for its second point. Its ability to dish out a ton of damage is why it makes it really good, because of its high attack. Because of this, it can win CMP a lot, like on the notes, so charging priority, you can use it to basically bank Foul Plays and come in and know you'll win CMP, and Foul Play does a decent chunk of damage, even as a Purified Mon. And the thing is, like, with Return, a stored Return, you can nuke a lot of Pokemon at, like, high ranges. So, especially in this meta, unless it's, like, a Bastiodon, you're gonna do pretty well against a lot of things. And it does beat a ton of, like I said, it does beat a lot. It's very safe, has a lot of safe matchups, especially against DD, which a lot of people are using now as well. Now, the only issue with Purified Sableye is, I would say, barrier to entry. Umbreon is really easy to get, so that's probably, if you like Dark typings, that's probably what you want. However, for Sableye, you need, if you don't have one by now, I wouldn't stress about using it. There are other things you can replace it with, but it's just really expensive, mostly because you need a hundo Purified Sableye as of right now, and it needs to be best buddied. Another problem is Sableye does not like Charm. Remember that Charm pivot I was talking about with Umbreon? Yeah, you could do that to Sableye too. And because Sableye doesn't have a ton of defense, one Charm will do big damage. So you have to be really careful and mindful of Charmers. Alright, Deoxys defense is our next one up for this half switch timer event, and it's extremely powerful. It has a ton of bulk, super high defense rather than HP, that's why its HP so low, but it is very bulky because, like I said, it's defense. It has a ton of safe matchups like Sableye does, and you have a lot of flexibility with it. You can use Rock Slide, you can use Thunderbolt. One Thunderbolt will do big damage against Pelipper and possibly KO it most of the time. Rock Slide also gives you a ton of coverage, to where you can take out Ice types, and you can take out Ice types, you can still take out Pelipper with Rock Slide. It won't do as much damage as Thunderbolt, but it does very well, and it's really flexible, like I said. One of the best things about Deoxys defense is Psycho Boost is an incredibly powerful move, and with it, you can essentially just Psycho Boost and dip, Psycho Boost and dip, so you can really play Psycho Boost. If you play it really well, you can shoot a Psycho Boost and switch out immediately, and with counter, you get there relatively quickly. It takes 5 counters to get to a Psycho Boost, and counter does big damage. The only problem with Sableye is, with Deoxys defense is like what I mentioned with Sableye. Basically, Sableye just, chunks and destroys Deoxys defense, and it gives you a really hard time. So, as far as safe switches go, the big safe switcher that beats you is Sableye. Along with that, Deoxys defense also doesn't do very well against the Dark Archetype, so Umbreons are popular as well, so you kind of have to be careful. However, as long as you're able to avoid the Dark types, you can do very, very well in this meta. Like I said, it's flexible, and with Psycho Boost is an incredibly powerful move and does heavy damage at high ranges, then you can just switch out. The only other issue is that it's really hard to get Deoxys defense. You can't trade Deoxys defense because it is a mythical Pokemon, so if you don't have one right now, you're not going to get one for a while until Niantic decides to bring it back. One thing that I don't really like about Deoxys defense, it has such a ridiculous barrier to entry because the only way to get it is to raid for it, and like I said, you can't trade it, so you have to raid for it. But if you do have it, it's incredibly powerful in this meta, and with Sableye, it combos very well as a core. Alright, one of my personal favorites from this list is Mew. Mew is an incredible safe swap because of its Wild Charge and just its super flexible moveset. Mew will keep you guessing. And even just simply having Wild Charge Mew, Wild Charge debuff and run is a very powerful thing. With this new timer, you can rack up Wild Charges like no tomorrow and send in Mew to nuke a ton of things because Wild Charge just does so much damage. You also have the option of using a powerful second move like Flame Charge. I used to use Grass Knot. I figured out that Wild Charge is actually the better one just because, like I said, Wild Charge debuff and run. You have the option using a second move. You can use Surf, but in my opinion, Flame Charge is better just because with Flame Charge, you can one-shot Abomasnows and Flame Charge gives you that attack boost. Most of the time, you're going to just Wild Charge and dip anyway, so with Mew, it's insanely powerful. It can handle a lot of types, and it can, like I said, with the super flexible moveset, it can keep your opponent guessing. Your opponent will likely be prompted to shield. And like I said, it's an amazing safe swap. Allows you to deal a ton of damage, and it only takes 2 or 3 charge moves to run the clock. So Mew can do a ton. Mew can charge away and then just escape whenever it's necessary, very, very quickly. The only issue with Mew is, like I said, with Deoxys defense, is the Dark Archetype. Mew does not like Umbreon or Sableye. Sableye can get chunked down with Wild Charge. Umbreon can tank a few Wild Charges, though. So just be very mindful of that Dark Archetype out there. Also, the second thing is, if you don't have a Mew built yet, guess what? It's going to take a lot of your Stardust as well as your TMs. Mew is the TM Cookie Monster in Go Battle League. It will possibly take hundreds of TMs before you actually get the Mew set you want. And if you don't have one now, the quest to get your other one from the Kanto event, if you bought the ticket, it takes a while to get Mew. So if you don't have one, you probably won't have one by the end of the half event timer. So just keep that in mind. However, if you do have one, Mew is super powerful, and I love the Wild Charge and Dip. Chip and dip with Mew, and it's super strong in this. Alright, next up is Alolan Ninetales. You probably don't need an introduction. If you've been playing Late League, you've probably seen Alolan Ninetales like no tomorrow. Alolan Ninetales is a beast, both as a Weather Ball user and as a Charmer. That's what makes it so dangerous. It's super flexible, super strong, and also does really well against those Dark Archetypes in this meta. It spams Weather Ball very, very quickly, and you have a choice of using Dazzling Gleam or Psyshock. In my opinion, I recommend Dazzling Gleam. You can use Psyshock, but I found that 90% of the time you're just going to use Weather Ball because of its spam. You're gonna set up combos with Alolan Ninetales, And with Dazzling Gleam, you can possibly nuke Umbreon, or you could take out a whole Sableye. So Dazzling Gleam just has so much more use, and it also does well against fighters. Like I said, if you land one, massive big damage, and with Powder Snow, you will generate energy quickly. The only problem with Alolan Ninetales is that Bastiodon. Well, yeah, pretty much it's Bastiodon. Bastiodon is just Bastiodon's a monster. Essentially, Bastiodon, no matter what moveset you put on Alolan Ninetales, it will wall you, and it does big damage. Alolan Ninetales, however, other than Bastiodon, is pretty dang good in this meta. If you use it as a Charmer, it gets to Weather Ball very quickly. Well, not very quickly, but it gets to its charge move faster than any other Charmer, and it's extremely versatile. So it also has that resistance against Dark types, like I said. So A9 is very strong in this meta. The only issue with that, A9 is it's not hard to get because you can hatch it from 7k eggs. But at the same time, like Alolan Ninetales, it is like to get, if you want a good IV one, you're either gonna have to trade it, or you're gonna have to have caught it from one of those events like GoFest, or like GoFest like Yokohama, or GoFest like the Philly GoFest worldwide from WoW. So, like I said, if you want a good one, kind of hard to get. Otherwise, it's very, very powerful and really good in this Switch Clock meta. Alright, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Gallaria Stunfisk because you either love this thing or you hate this thing. This Pancake Bear Trap, Flip-Flop, Chinella, Chanchala, whatever you want to call it, is probably either one. Like I said, you either love this thing or it's the bane of your existence. Gallaria Stunfisk is really good in half Switch Clock meta, as if it wasn't already in Open Great League anyways, with a 60-second timer. It has a lot of charge move pressure. It's the tank, it's probably it's the most powerful combination of tanky and pressure in Open Great League meta, and in this half Switch Clock event, it's super powerful. It absolutely destroys Charmers, and it's Bastiodon's worst nightmare, because one Earthquake will yeet a Bastion to oblivion, or almost kill it, actually, so... Yeah, basically, Earthquake leaves it, like, near death, and Earthquake also puts heavy shield pressure on your opponent. This will Gallaria Stunfisk's Earthquake is so powerful, it will force your opponent to really decide what they want to do with things like Swampert, etc. And you can also bank Rock Slides very quickly. With the Rock Slide pressure and the Earthquake pressure, and just Mudshot, Gallaria Stunfisk is a beast in the 30-second meta, as it is the 60-second meta. I would say the only issue is there are some fighters around with Gallaria Stunfisk. Also, it does lose to two prominent Weather Ballers in Polytode as well as Pelipper. Pelipper can beat Gallaria Stunfisk in the 2-shield. Also, 2 Weather Balls from Pelipper can take out Gallaria Stunfisk. So, again, it just doesn't do too well against the Water Weather Ball meta. Other than that, Gallaria Stunfisk is an insanely powerful Pokemon. Not just in Open Great League, but in the Half Switch Timer event. Alright, next up we got Pelipper. Pelipper is in my opinion, probably the highest attack of all the Weather Ballers, and it's super powerful. It's a powerful lead. Well, it wins CMP a lot. I think Obama Snow does beat Pelipper, but for the most part, it really does really well in this meta. With Water Weather Ball, you take out a lot of things like G-Fisk. Water Weather Ball also does a ton of damage combined with Pelipper's attack. It's an insanely powerful lead. It covers a lot of bases. For example, Pelipper can beat grass types if you can land Hurricane, and Wing Attack will still do big chip damage. Does really well against fighters, and unless it's something like a Skarmory, or like a Bastiodon, it does pretty well. The Hurricane can also do big damage, like I said, can KO a lot of things like fighters, and if it does land, it's still going to do a ton of damage against things like Umbreon, and can possibly one-shot things like Sableye. Now, the thing about Pelipper is, ironically, Pelipper's weakness is rocks. Also, there's I've seen a lot of teams with Galvantula around. Galvantula is Pelipper's worst nightmare. Volt Switches will do a ton of damage against Pelipper, along with Mew's Wild Charge. One Wild Charge from Mew will wipe Pelipper from the face of the planet. So, if you like your Toilet Bird, just make sure your Toilet Bird isn't flushed out by an Electric-type move. Along with that, Bastiodon can also beat Pelipper. That's one of the big problems. Because Bastiodon is so tanky, Bastiodon can actually run through Pelipper unless Pelipper has, I think, 4 Weather Balls. 4 or 5 Weather Balls are required to take out a Bastiodon. With that being said, because it doesn't have high bulk, it can be smacked down by a Bastiodon, sadly. But other than that, Pelipper wins CMP a lot. It's super powerful, and as with all Weather Ballers in this meta, it's able to spam Weather Ball like no tomorrow, and can do big damage over time in this half Switch Clock Alright, last but not least, we got Polytode. In my opinion, Polytode is the strongest Pokemon in this meta, just because of the fact that it is the fastest Weather Ball user. It only takes 8 turns, 4 mud shots to get to a Weather Ball. Because of that, Polytode can bank a ton of energy, and it's super easy to set up combos with Polytode. Very often than not, I've had Polytode swap in on me with queued up Weather Balls, just because it's that fast. 4 mud shots is a big deal, and with the ability to spam and set up combos, Polytode is really good. Also with it, you can run the clock, and its charge move, Earthquake or Blizzard, does big damage. You can use either one. I only like Earthquake because of Bastiodon, and I find that because you don't get same type attack bonus with Blizzard, you won't one-shot a lot of things either. So, and besides, you're either going, like I said, Earthquake does give you coverage against Bastiodon. It also gives you that one-shot potential against Gallaria and Stunfisk, because Gallaria and Stunfisk can still beat you if you got chip damage. It has energy lead, and it can Earthquake you at a certain range. So with Earthquake, you cover that Steel archetype, and it just does big damage because of it, and you get there really quickly because of Mudshot. I wouldn't say there's not a lot of issues with Polytode. Polytode, I would say the only issue is if, like, you face other water types, like if you're like, for example, Pelipper. Pelipper does really well against Polytode because unless you have Blizzard, it effectively walls you. However, you do outpace Pelipper, so it's not too bad either. Along with that, just be careful of things like Wild Charge users, and of course the mighty Galvantula. Galvantula has a great time with you, even though you can fire a ton of Weather Balls. These Volt Switches will chunk because Polytode isn't the biggest boy in the land. But like I said, Polytode, in my opinion, is the most powerful Pokemon in this meta just because of its sheer speed, its coverage, and the amount of damage it can do over time just because of Weather Ball, and of basically you can take advantage of the mechanics of having a switch timer the most with Polytode. Polytode, along with Gallaria and Stunfisk and Pelipper, I forgot to mention, are also pretty easy to obtain. You can hatch them from eggs, you can get Poly Whirl from rewards, and they also sometimes spawn in the wild and they nest. Same thing with Pelipper. Pelipper has been spawning around lately with Wingles, and Wingles still spawn frequently, so it's not too hard to get a Pelipper. And Pelipper, like long-term, Pelipper, G-Fisk, and Polytode will do very well for you in Open Great League if you're just starting out in Go Battle League. Alright, and that's it, you guys. I hope these Pokemon really do help you out. You probably have seen these a lot because throughout all ELOs, these are being used, and they're just so powerful. After analyzing and looking at the list, these definitely are some of the, the top Pokemon, in my opinion, as well, to use in this half-switch timer meta. Again, some of these are hard to obtain, so if you don't have them, it's okay. You can substitute with the other ones, because some of them are easy to get, but unfortunately, things like Mew, Deoxys Defense, unless you already have one built, they're going to be super expensive. And you can't even get Deoxys Defense anyways, because it's mythical, so unless it comes back out, if you don't have one yet, you're probably not going to be able to use it for this event. If you guys liked the video, please like and subscribe. Hopefully these Pokemon do help you out again, and hopefully they help you build teams that will make you do really well for the rest of the Switch Clock meta. Good luck on your Go Battle League sets, and I will see you guys on the next video.